Hey friends, I'm Haley Gaffin, podcast strategist, producer of Accidental CEO, and the creator of Mic Check Retreat, a live in-person experience designed for podcasters who want to grow their shows, strengthen their brands, and connect with a supportive community of fellow hosts. Now, today's episode is a little different. You're used to hearing from Nada here on the show, but this time I'm jumping in because what you're about to hear was actually recorded live at Mic Check Retreat, which is an event I host each year that brings podcasters together for open, honest conversations about what's working, what they're experimenting with, and how they're continuing to grow. In this special roundtable discussion, Nada joins in on this incredible group of podcast hosts to share wins, lessons, and insights from behind the mic. It's casual, it's real, and it's packed with inspiration for anyone building their podcast and business side by side. I'm so excited for you to listen in, and if you're thinking, I'd love to be in the room for the next one, you can join the waitlist for the next Mic Check Retreat at gaffincreative.com/retreat. All right, let's dive into this roundtable conversation recorded live from the retreat.
Hey there, I am Nada Salvatore, and you're listening to the Accidental CEO podcast. This is a space for high-performing entrepreneurs who have built real success, but still find themselves tangled in the day-to-day. If you're done being the engine of your business and ready for scale with clarity, trust, and ease, you're in the right place. Each week, I'll bring you sharp strategies, identity-level mindset shifts, and leadership tools to help you rise above the business and lead from alignment, not exhaustion. Because scaling isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more of who you're meant to be. Subscribe now and let's build a version of your business that finally supports you. You're not just winging it, you are leading it. But let's be honest, being the CEO and the everything else can get lonely, messy, and exhausting. That's why I created the Accidental CEO Collective, a free Facebook community for creative entrepreneurs who never planned to be the boss, but damn it, here we are. Inside, I go live every week to share the real stuff. Strategies that don't require a business degree, behind-the-scenes struggles, because you're not the only one, and wins that we actually celebrate, even the tiny ones. If you're a scrappy, smart, sometimes slightly burnout founder who is ready to lead with more clarity and less chaos, this is your room. We're building a business that works for us, not one that runs us into the ground. Come join us. Let's grow, mess up, pivot, and succeed together. Just search the Accidental CEO Collective on Facebook and join our group today.
Hey friends, welcome back to Clocking In. I'm your host, Haley Gaffin, and today's episode is very special to me because we're coming to you live from Mic Check Retreat, surrounded by a ton of incredible podcasters who are ready to get even more intentional with their shows. Now, if you've been listening for a while, you might remember last year when we hosted this, it was all about podcasting experts, and we had a panel. Well, every podcaster in this room is an expert, so we've decided to bring them onto the show to share about their own podcast. We're going to hear their wins, their creativity, and some surprising ways they have been using their podcast to grow their businesses. So we're going to get started with one single win. What is one way that your podcast has directly impacted your business in the last year? Nada, how about you?
So one of the things that having my podcast really helped me, like a big win for me this year, was to give myself a space for learning again. When you get in the busy day-to-day of running your own business, of being an entrepreneur, sometimes finding time for learning is something that is at the bottom of your list, if there's even a place in your list for that. So being able to sit down with people and learn about what they're teaching, what they're sharing, just brought back that passion about learning that I've always had and ignited that fire again. So it was really fun to bring that back into my life through the podcast.
I think that's so interesting because we were talking about how important it is to listen to your guests, and you're like taking that extra step to actually learn from them because that's what your audience is doing. So I appreciate that. Coley, how about you?
So the one thing that I learned from my podcast this year was just a reminder of one of the main reasons that I started it, which was to be a marketing tool. And I have found in my 2-minute marketing survey that I ask everyone after they've purchased a template or a course, why did you buy from me? more and more I am seeing, well, you talked about it on the podcast and you made it seem so easy. And so sometimes when you listen to your audience, it's good to hear them say that what you are doing intentionally is working.
That's always fun because it also means your podcast is working for your business. What is something unexpected you've learned about yourself or your business since launching your podcast? Octavia, I'm going to ask you that question.
Okay, so something that I have learned since launching my podcast is that I have analysis paralysis. I get really caught up into building systems that will help me do the thing instead of actually doing the thing. And so I have started to work on practices to help me just not be a paralysis analysis. You guys get what I'm saying. Not to be that person. So that is one thing that I have definitely learned since launching my podcast.
Would it make sense for you to delegate someone to hit publish on a lot of your stuff?
That would make a lot of sense. Unfortunately, again, that causes me to have to put a system in place to have someone press the button and then it just never gets pressed. So yes, that would make sense. But
okay. What is one creative way that you have repurposed your podcast content that actually saved you time or made your content stronger? So Coley, I'd love to hear about your repurposing strategy.
So the funny thing is it only took 3 years and 200 episodes for me to replay an episode on the podcast again. And we get caught up so much in creating new content that we forget to look back at what we've already created. And while I do that for things outside of the podcast, I had never done it for an episode on the podcast. So now for 3 weeks in a row, I have taken an old solo episode that was from a couple years ago and slapped on a new updated version for an intro as well as an outro. And now that I am 3 years in and I am really selling myself on my podcast, it has a much stronger CTA than it had in the original, but the actual content is still relevant. And so this was a way for me to go back to 2 episodes a week with only having to record 5 extra minutes of audio.
So this morning we talked about how I replayed an episode from 3 years ago. I shared about replaying an episode from 3 years ago that made a sale on my podcast 3 years later. And it was content that had already been shared, but someone who was not in my audience 3 years ago and now is, saw that content and purchased. I also feel like I want to ask you a follow-up question because we talked about this offline of you specifically updated one of your episodes where you replayed it, but there were things that changed. You told them at the beginning you would end the episode with updates. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and that was the very first one that I replayed. But I purposefully said at the beginning, and I'm going to tell you guys how I'm taking the original emails that I talk about in this episode and how they have changed now. And I specifically said in my follow-up emails, which is something that I am always talking about, that now every single one of my follow-up emails has a mini case study in it. So I'm highlighting one of my client transformations, and that made not only the content stronger, but also gave an update to, hey, if you guys are doing these, this is something else that you can do to make your follow-up emails stronger.
Christy, what about you?
I just thought of something for the last question that also ties into this question. Something that I've learned about in my business and about myself and my business after being a podcaster for 4 years is that we can so often get really down on ourselves and hard on ourselves and think that we're not growing or we don't know what we're talking about or we are not worthy to be sharing the content that we're creating. I personally struggle a lot with my mindset. It's in my human design chart that I don't have continual access to my self-worth and image. But after having a podcast for 4 years, what I've learned is that I can go back and look through this body of work that I have created over the past 4 years and see all these things that I have created as proof that I do know what I'm talking about. I do have things that are valuable to share with my audience that people can find valuable and learn from and grow from. And I can also go back into some of those episodes and repurpose them. That's one of the things I'm doing currently is I'm putting old episodes onto Pinterest because it is a way for me to get older episodes out there. I have some freebies attached to them. And so it's a great way for me to not create a brand new piece of content. I'm just going and putting some more marketing efforts behind the content that's already there in a way to grow my list. So it helps to boost my confidence when I go back through and I look and I'm like, hey, I'm pretty good at this business thing. I know what I'm talking about. It really helps me to just feel good about what I'm doing and feel like I'm helping people.
Yeah. And you made a good point about like going back through the content and finding things that you were aligned with. So I'd love to ask anyone who, if there is a piece of content that you have felt aligned with that you're like, I want to do more content around that. And if that's made an impact on how your show proceeded, like, or if it pivoted the direction you took your show. Bree, how about you?
So I've had my podcast for almost 7 years now. And when it first started, all of the episodes were with guests. And I did not do a solo episode until probably 3 years ago. So it was over halfway through. You encouraged me to do solos. I was worried about, like, Christy, what you said, like that worth and that value of, well, I'm not the expert, or I'm not good enough, or whatever it is. And so I brought in people who I was like, they are the expert. They are good at this. Like, let me interview them. And it was really just a way for me to hide my voice and to like that protection. And so when I stepped into, okay, let me do some solos, let me see what happens, those episodes have outperformed my guest episodes. And was so reaffirming in that way of like, you do know what you're talking about. People do want to hear from you. They do want to listen to you. And so that's one way that my show has pivoted in a huge way since it started.
I think both of you make a really good point about the mindset we have, because I have the opposite mindset of I am terrible at interviews. And even in this scenario, I'm like sweating through my shirt because I feel so bad at interviews. But solos, I'm like, I'm crushing it. I can do a solo. I went a whole year before I ever had someone else on my podcast. It brings up that there are so many different podcasters who struggle with so many different things. Like, and if you feel like you're the only podcaster that has that issue, you're not. So I would love anyone to share if there's a struggle that they've faced, if they're still facing it, or if there's something they've done to overcome it. Because mine has been trying to get more guests onto my show, but in unique ways. So I'm like asking people to come in and share their expertise, but I'm not actually interviewing them because I still struggle with interviews. Claire, how about you?
Hi. So when I started my podcast, I actually had a huge fear of public speaking, a huge fear of speaking just in general. Like even being in this setting right now, like having all these eyes on me, it's pretty scary. But I started my podcast because I knew I wanted to speak. And so I started my podcast to plow through that fear and just go dive straight into that fear and start speaking. And so I do primarily solo episodes, and that has been nerve-wracking on itself because it's just me, but I have found this confidence with it that I never knew I could have until I just did it. And so that's been really huge for me.
Christy, what about you?
So that reminds me about the importance of practicing. I was taking an art class recently, and the teacher of the art class said, don't expect the first time you do something to be great. And I think it can be challenging to think, oh, I got to do this podcast. Like Octavia was saying, I'm stuck in the analysis paralysis. But the truth is, the more you podcast, the better at it you will get.
Okay, that's so good because we were talking at lunch, I'm in my hobby era. And I'm starting new hobbies. And I saw this thing on TikTok the other day that was like, you're not bad at it. You're just a beginner. And I keep telling myself that in every single new thing I'm doing. So, yes. Okay, so a lot of our listeners are business owners. And I would love to know if there's something that you do now differently in your business since you started podcasting. Kiana, I would love to hear from you.
One thing that's really changed for me as far as business growth and being excited about talking about the podcast has been getting in the rooms and sharing that I have a podcast. Having a podcast has introduced me to the coolest business owners and creatives ever. And it honestly feels like a little mini pick your brain sessions. And I hate saying that out loud, but it really does allow you as the interviewer to ask these questions that you've always dreamed of asking these industry leaders, these business besties, and these friends. And so I think having the podcast as a conversation starter really has brought me into really incredible rooms and introduced me to really great people that have grown my business financially, through friends, and just all the fun things.
Let's be honest, you didn't build this business to work 80 hours a week, chasing invoices and solving problems at midnight. But now you're hit a wall. You've outgrown DIY and you're spinning your wheels trying to scale and stay sane. That's where one-on-one coaching with me comes in. This is not a cookie cutter program. It's tailored, strategic support designed specifically for founders like you, the ones who built something from nothing and are now carrying all the weight. We'll get clear on what's keeping you stuck, simplify your focus, and build a plan that gets results without burning you out. If you want a second brain and no BS sounding board, and someone who can help you make better, faster, smart decisions, this is for you. Head out to accidentalceo.co/coaching. That's accidentalceo.co/coaching. And let's work together to grow your business and take your life back.
Coley, I would love to hear from you now.
So I don't actually want to answer the question. I want to say something related to that because I think an added bonus that a lot of us don't talk about or think about is so many of the guests that I've had on my podcast, I have been semi-interested in their offer. And so when I get to ask them the questions that I want to ask them, I end up buying stuff from my guests and they do the same of me. I'll be on a podcast talking about my podcast planner. And next thing I know, an hour after I interviewed this guest, they went and bought it. So it is I don't want to say it's a try before you buy, but Kiana, you are not the only person doing that.
So if you're not doing that, let's start doing it. This is going to be a real thinker. If you had to delete every episode of your podcast except one, what would it be and why? Nada. How about you?
I would keep the episode that I did with my daughters. So I interview my daughters. Oh, obviously, they're my daughters, so I would keep them there. But the reason why I created that episode is because so many people struggle with that guilt of being a mom and having a business. And I just wanted to put a message out there that your kids are learning from you when they're watching you work. There are values that you're teaching, there are things that you're sharing that they're gonna carry on for the rest of their lives. So yeah, values and lessons they're gonna carry for the rest of their life. So stick to it, work hard, and just show them the value of doing that.
And I think our listeners feel every bit of what you're saying because they have listened to that episode because we've aired it on the podcast before. So if you haven't listened, go to Nada's podcast. We'll link it in the show notes for that particular episode because it's freaking adorable. But two, Megan and I have talked about it quite a few times of how strong and powerful your daughters come across in that episode and just what you've been doing. So
it's cute. And I promise I will not have a crying voice when you listen to that one. So definitely should go listen to it. And the reason why I would leave that episode in there is because I do see this is a very common thing that I see, especially with my coaching clients as women who run businesses, all that guilt that comes with being a mom and trying to run the business at the same time. And I just wanted to show those amazing women that they can work hard and show their kids that it is a valuable thing to do, to be a CEO, to be a strong woman, to have your own business. So I want to kind of help people get rid of that guilt that you don't deserve it. You are working hard. You're an amazing mom. So I wanted to show everybody how you can feed information and confidence to your kids by just allowing them to watch you work. So that's it.
Kiana, what about you?
Okay, so this is the perfect segue to my episode that I would absolutely never delete. And it actually was a recent episode. It was called You're Only on the Second Season of Friends. And this was so powerful. It was actually a kind of recap story, a conversation about a recent concert. I got to see the Kelsey Ballerini concert. You know, when you go to the concert, you have the openers, and a lot of times it's the first time being introduced to them, hearing their music, hearing their names. And Marin Taylor was an opener, and she opened up about this song, You're Only in the Second Season of Friends. And if you're a Friends fan, you know in the second season, Ross is still dating Julie. Rachel is still at the coffee shop. She hasn't even started her career in fashion. Nothing is on the plan yet. And the reason why I thought this was such a intentional and also relatable episode was because everything that I chatted about really aligned up with the fact that I'm still in the second season of Friends in my life. And the reason why I say this is a good piggyback to Nata's story is not being married yet, not having my children yet, praying for this dream life. In addition to that, it's also relatable in the business aspect because I'm still in the second season of Friends in my business. So having the podcast and sharing these stories and filtering kind of like a little bit of the pop culture and my real life connection as well as business connections, this episode is packed with all those fun insights. And as another reminder too that just came to mind is this is the beauty of podcasting is you get to talk out your biggest and wildest dreams through your voice and through the conversations of those around you. So I have this download right now. If anyone is listening and thinking, I have this idea for a podcast, but I don't know. I like so many things and I don't know where to start and I don't want to commit to something. This is the beauty of podcasting is you just need to start because just like Friends, every season is going to grow. Every season is going to expand and you will get your house in the suburbs. you will be like Joey and get into acting, right? So that was just my episode. I would never delete.
Okay, that's amazing because I was sitting here thinking about where every single person in this room is in their podcasting journey and like think about the day that you decided you wanted to launch a podcast, like how far you've come. And even if that's a month, even if that's 2 months or 7 years, like you are so far beyond that, no matter the length of time, because there's only room to grow. Claire, what about you?
So to kind of tie into everyone's story before, I've had my podcast now for a couple months, and I think that the only episode I would probably never delete would be my very first episode because I was so proud of myself for publishing that episode. And to tie into Nada's story, I wanted my son to look back one day and think, I'm so proud of my mom for taking those huge steps because now I have the confidence to take those huge steps. And so my first episode, because I was just so proud of myself for publishing, for just doing it. So, yeah.
I would love to know how podcasting has changed you as a leader and how you show up as the leading expert in your industry, if you feel like it has. Bree, what about you?
It's helped me find my voice, be more confident, and then be a better speaker, thought leader, educator when you're forced to talk and have to release a podcast episode every single week, or right now I'm releasing twice a week. You talk a lot. And there is something I think that was said earlier about like, you have to get the reps in, right? Like you have to be a beginner at something. You have to practice. You're not going to be great at it the first time you do something. And there's beauty in that. And your audience is going to grow with you. But that's something that podcasting has given me is a lot of confidence when it comes to getting behind a mic, whether it is virtually or in person.
I even think podcasters could learn from themselves by listening back to what they have to say. And this is a practice I've been doing lately where I'm going back and listening to old episodes, and 9 times out of 10, I'm actually impressed with what I had to say. And you as a podcaster probably will be too if you go back and listen. Or in those 1 out of 10 times, you will think, I can improve here. And I'm okay doing that because it's only going to make me better.
Or then taking your own advice. Right? Yeah. Like it's learning. Yes. Like, okay, now let me actually go and pause and apply what I just laid out for my audience. And let me go do that for myself.
Christy, what about you?
I think a beautiful thing about podcasting is it is a safe space for you to share your ideas and explore your content and develop your content. Like Claire was saying, she had a fear of public speaking. And I think a lot of people are there and can totally 1,000% relate to that. When you have a podcast, I feel like it's a playground for me to be myself, to share things that I maybe wouldn't share otherwise, because I know that the people listening to my podcast are like my obsessed followers and they really are rooting for me. And so it has helped me to develop my ideas and also been an opportunity to get on stages because I can develop episode ideas and release them on my podcast, or I can pitch to be guests on other podcasts and continue to develop those ideas and then turn it into a keynote speech to pitch to my favorite conference or something like that. So it's a great place to explore your ideas and develop your ideas as a thought leader.
I would love to know by raise of hands, and I'll say how many hands went up. How many of you have either asked someone to be a guest on your podcast because you heard them on another podcast? Or how many of you have been asked to be on a podcast because they heard you on your show? Over half the hands in the room went up. So that's solid. Okay, so in relation to the retreat, I would love to hear one takeaway that you're like, I am leaving this room and I'm doing it right now. Anyone? Coley.
I already did mine, so my homework is checked off. I finally launched something related to paid ads for my podcast. I already did the one campaign with Mopod, and then I'm planning on doing the other one at the airport on my way home. So how long have I been trying to do this? All it took was sitting in the room and listening to Jesse talk, and then I hit publish.
Yes. Jesse's from Mopod. They sponsored the retreat. So thank you, Jesse and Mopod. Nada, how about you?
I think being more intentional with just the marketing of the podcast in general and all the different ways you can be in front of people. I think that was a huge, portion of what you taught us in these last 2 days that I'm definitely going to be following up on and putting into place as soon as possible.
Brett and Brandy, I want to hear from you.
After all the education that we were able to absorb at this amazing retreat, we feel empowered to finally hit publish. Yeah.
Brandy, do you want to add to that at all?
I honestly feel the same way as Brett, where it's like being in this room with all of these incredible powerhouse podcasters has made it feel way more attainable, achievable, and not scary. And Haley has packaged up so much knowledge in such a magical way that makes it feel exciting to explore all of these new avenues for ourselves. So we're really pumped to pull the trigger and go for it.
And Kiana, what about you?
One of the best parts about the retreat, although there were so many, one of my favorites is the fact that we're all gathered here in this room together. How often do you have the opportunity to be surrounded by other passionate business owners and specifically podcasters that are taking their business to the next level, that are dealing with life and all the things? And it's just such an empowering moment to hear what is going on in everybody else's podcast plans, hear how we're all marketing and using different strategies. It's in between moments. It's the beautiful talks and lessons that Haley provides. And it's just so fun to be in a group where the ideas are bouncing, and just kind of like what Brandy mentioned is like you're going to leave feeling so empowered and magical, not this overwhelming feeling like what you've done already needs to be burned down and started over. Like we've already laid the bricks, and now it's really just a matter of amplifying our voices. So yeah, I'm all about getting in the room. So thank you, Haley.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I do have a question because you kind of brought up this idea of being inspired. Is there something that you heard someone else talk about during this retreat that you were like, I had no idea I could do that with my podcast? And this could have been a side conversation over lunch, anything along those lines.
I will share if it's okay. So Coley just had an experience where she made a sale literally this week. And I was just so mesmerized by this strategy where she had a handful of podcasters come together and collaborate on one episode. And that is something that I have never seen before. I've seen the part one, half of a chat on one podcast, and then almost kind of like old school Instagram loop and go see part two on another podcast host. And I think that's genius. I want to do that too. But the fact that you, Coley, shared this plan, and this was years ago, right? This 2 years ago, you had this collaboration post and it was great. I need to listen to it. But just that concept alone, where she had multiple podcast experts sharing about their business and then listing out the freebies on the bottom. So it was just a quick, cool, I heard so-and-so's voice. I need to learn more about that. I mean, it was just mind-blowing to me. And so that is one strategy I cannot wait to implement when I get home.
Oh, thank you. And I want to make sure that I don't take credit. It was actually my good friend Anami Tonkin who put it together, and it was called the Business Road Trip. And it happened over the summer, and it was specifically for photographers. But just to put a plug in, I am recording an episode for this that Haley is going to air on Clocking In. So if you would like more information about the strategy and to hear more about like how I was absolutely gobsmacked by making a sale of a pretty high ticket item 2 years later, make sure that you stay tuned.
Amazing. Christy, what about you?
I think something that I've learned from everybody here is that you have control over your podcast and you can set the tone for your podcast, even with your guest episodes. I have always, when having guests on my podcast, let them decide what they're going to be speaking on, which has served me really well. And I've really enjoyed it. And I've learned a lot of things from other guests. But as we were talking, I realized, I can invite people to come on and share something specific that I want them to share because I think it's important for my listeners to know. And so now I have this whole idea for a new series that I'm going to do where I could potentially get some dream guests to be on my podcast that I never would have thought would have been possible to get on my podcast. But I'm realizing being in the room with all these people that it is possible. And whatever I want to have as my wildest dreams for my podcast can become reality.
Oh, that makes me feel so good. A huge thank you to every single Mic Check Retreat attendee who showed up to this conversation, shared openly, and made space for each other. Their willingness to show up with curiosity and generosity is exactly what makes this community so special.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nada Salvatore, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.